but something was there.
There's something about the inner workings of a criminal that's just so fascinating to watch. The innate morbid curiosity in us can only be satisfied by diving into these dark, twisted stories. That jolt of adrenaline we get when a monster is finally brought to justice, or maybe we're just a little twisted. Either way, there's nothing better than cozying up with a good crime show. Netflix has been absolutely killing it, pun intended, lately, carving out a niche for itself with high-caliber, binge-worthy true crime documentaries. From twisted murder mysteries to shocking scandals, Netflix has mastered the art of hooking us with stories that are as unsettling as they are fascinating. If you're anything like me, once you start watching, it's hard to stop. You're sucked in by the suspense, the drama, and the sheer horror of it all. I bet these stories will keep you glued to your screen, heart racing and mind spinning. So grab your snacks, settle in, and join me as we dive into the top 15 true crime shows on Netflix that you can binge right now. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Stopped Monday. Was at Stephen Avery's home.
If he did this, maybe it was good he was in prison.
Making a Murderer, 2015. Making a Murderer is a spellbinding, slow-burn documentary television series that revolves around Stephen Avery from Wisconsin, who was wrongfully convicted of attempted murder and sexual assault of Penny Bjertsen in 1985 and the murder of Teresa Halbach in 2007. He was imprisoned for the crime of assaulting and attempting to murder Penny Bjertsen in 1985, where he spent 18 years of his life before being exonerated. Just when you think it's finally over and his nightmare is over, he's arrested once again, and this time for the murder of Teresa Halbach. Halbach was last seen on Avery's property for a photo shoot, and then later, her remains were found on Avery's property. The series also follows the conviction of Brendan Dassey, who was accused of being an accessory in the murder of Halbach. Dassey's confessions were seemingly coerced, which brought up an endless number of controversies. Their case opened the audience's eyes to the corruption in the American justice system, police misconduct, and mishandling of evidence. This case managed to spark public outrage, and the show delves into how they uncover new evidence and file appeals. It gives the viewers a closer look at Avery's lawyers and Dassey's legal team to overturn his conviction. The series has managed to stir intense debates and inspired armchair detectives, such as you and I, from everywhere. They won multiple awards, including 4 Primetime Emmy Awards, and the case became a nationwide sensation, with people all over protesting for his release. Although critics mention that the documentary may be one-sided, favoring Avery's side, it beautifully shows how much a wrongful conviction can impact and destroy a person. The series relies on interviews, court proceedings, news clips, and telephone and video recordings to tell the story. This show is not just a binge watch, but also a thought-provoking exploration of America's justice system.
Our senior year, and it's always haunted many people in the community.
The Keepers, 2017. Critically acclaimed and well-crafted, this documentary exposes long-buried secrets and real-life terror in the haunting tale of Sister Catherine Sesnick. It explores the unsolved 1969 murder of Sister Kathy, a Catholic nun and high school teacher at Baltimore's all-girls Archbishop Keough High School. The villain of this story comes in the form of a holy priest, Joseph Maskell, whom many students allegedly accused of sexual abuse. The documentary portrays the survivors with sensitivity and provides ample attention to Gemma Hoskins and Abby Schaub, 2 dedicated amateur detectives who have been searching for justice for Sister Kathy. The Keepers offers concentrated information and profoundly examines the experiences of the victims, as well as the impact on their lives and families. It maintains a solid narrative structure, hopping between 1969, the 1990s, and today. Some viewers note that the series starts slow, mainly because much of the evidence is circumstantial. However, the documentary handles the sensitive topic in a way that allows for sluggish digestion. It then picks up with each episode, featuring a wow moment that keeps you hooked. Many viewers have said they are still haunted by this case, even years after watching it. The Keepers explores themes of systemic corruption, the Catholic Church's handling of sexual abuse allegations, police collaboration, and the long-term trauma suffered by survivors. It powerfully depicts how the guards of God's house turned into rampaging monsters, destroying the very souls they swore to protect. Unsurprisingly, the church initially declined to comment on the sexual misconduct allegations. However, further investigations revealed that Maskell's name has since been added to the church's official website on a page listed List of priests and brothers accused of child sexual abuse, ironically placed alongside a helpline for victims of abuse.
America was land of promise. It was my conviction we will have...
Wild Wild Country, 2018. Picture this. A group of people buy some property in your area, led by an Indian guru who calls himself Bhagwan and his personal assistant. One by one, people in your locality start falling sick. You hear screams and wails coming from their property, but there isn't much you can do about it, as now you're a minority in your own locality. Now picture this. The property is 80,000 acres, and the group consists of around 500,000 people. The story of Sri Rajneesh and Rajneeshpuram is so wild, so aptly named, it's almost unbelievable. In 1968, Sri Rajneesh, famously known as Osho, began a movement that became an almost overnight sensation, and soon he had tens of thousands of people at his every beck and call. The story picks up when he moves to Wasco County, Oregon, where he, his fiercely loyal personal secretary, Ma Anand Sheela, and their followers, sannyasins, start a new city known as Rajneeshpuram. The city of Rajneeshpuram was so advanced that it had its own schools, farms, medical centers, and even airports. This six-part series examines the dynamics between the followers of Rajneesh, the local community, and the U.S. government. They even made headlines with one of the most shocking bioterror attacks in U.S. history by attempting to poison nearby towns with salmonella to influence local elections. Viewers considered it one of the most binge-worthy and fascinating shows of all time. Although the documentary made it seem like Sheela was the mastermind behind the whole operation, there were various discrepancies throughout that brought to light just how much the Bhagwan was involved in this, such as how the Bhagwan wanted his videos and lectures to be shown to disciples every day early in the morning. I mean, just how selfish do you have to be to even think of something like that? But then again, he also called himself Bhagwan, which translates to Lord, so it adds up. It was also mentioned in other books how there were clear prejudices and hostility towards their group by their local people, including the co-founder of Nike and the government officials, and he still went ahead and invited the authorities to investigate the crimes they committed. I guess Sheela might have been the brains behind the whole operation after all, considering how he managed to single-handedly blow it all up by giving them the green pass.
But something was there.
The Nightstalker, The Hunt for a Serial Killer, 2021. Now this one sent shivers down even my spine. This four-part documentary revolves around Richard Ramirez, the man who terrorized the streets of California from 1984 to 1985. The name itself is enough to bring a sour taste to my mouth. A man so vile and dangerous, his cruelty had no bounds. His modus operandi was breaking into random houses before brutally murdering and raping the inhabitants. Even for such a loyal Satanist, his acts of terror knew no bounds. His victims ranged from the age of 9 to the age of 83, and his methods of torture were disturbingly diverse. From electrocution to stomping. The documentary focuses on the lead detectives of his case, Carrillo and Salerno, who worked tirelessly to track down Ramirez. His actions had led to public panic, where the brutality of his crimes were plastered across every newspaper. It was challenging, to say the least, to go about their investigation. Nightstalker stands out for its gritty, tense narrative, effectively conveying the fear and paranoia that had blanketed Southern California during that era. Although Ramirez wasn't considered appealing, he was described as dirty with rotting teeth and lousy hygiene, the televised court had managed to create a certain sense of sex appeal about him. With curly hair and sunglasses hiding his deep hollowed eyes, he almost looked handsome, almost like an 80s rocker. One thing that viewers commented on in the documentary, it doesn't make you feel the least bit sorry for Ramirez, not even about his upbringing, as they pay due homage to the victims. This was not a retelling of his stories. This was the story about how the detectives caught the monster of a man. Prepare yourself for a gut-wrenching watch with this one.
You tell my mama I done it.
The Confession Tapes, 2017. The Confession Tapes is a gripping docuseries that explores cases where people were convicted of crimes, mainly murder, based on their confessions. What makes this show worth the watch is that many of these confessions were obtained under questionable circumstances or were coerced. It was indeed an eye-opener to all the major holes in our justice system. It demonstrates how biased the system is and how many people are being wrongly convicted of crimes they did not commit. With each episode showing a different case, it makes for an exciting watch. Many of the convicted individuals, including the ones who spent the last 30 or so years in prison, still maintain their innocence. Some of them were arrested without significant evidence that connected them to the crime scenes, apart from their confessions. This included the 1994 Raffe family murder case, which was allegedly committed by son Atif Raffe and his friend Sebastian Burns. The police used controversial methods, such as the Mr. Big technique, to extract information. This technique is now banned in many countries for its unreliability. What is the Mr. Big technique, you ask? Well, the police go undercover and act like they are part of a criminal organization and promise the suspect money or protection in order to confess any crimes they may have committed. They then release these tapes and use them as evidence in court. Now, this is only one of the many deceptive and manipulative methods they use to trap and lure in people. Confession tapes questioned the reliability of these confession tapes and the fairness of the justice system, which had led to the wrongful convictions of many. Viewers remarked how addictive the series is, and most of them have learned one thing: never talk to the police without your lawyer, for anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Don't F with Cats, Hunting an Internet Killer, 2019. Being one of Netflix's top 5 most watched documentaries, this one sure does live up to its name. Starting off in a mockumentary style, this limited series reveals a gruesome and unsettling tale of how a group of internet sleuths launched a manhunt for Canadian pornographic actor Luca Magnotta. Magnotta became an overnight sensation for sharing a video of himself suffocating 2 kittens in a plastic bag in 2010, and later on for the murder of Jun Lin. What Magnotta desired most in the world was fame, and he was willing to go to any length to attain it. From posting provocative videos of himself to engaging in twisted acts like the brutal murder of animals and people, the man would do anything for views. He gained international popularity for his videos of animal cruelty, which he kept engaging in. This enraged a group of cat lovers and internet sleuths, who used every clue they could find in the video to identify and locate the killer. This seemed to only edge Magnotta on, and he began taunting the group with more gruesome content, and ultimately, the murder of Jun Lin. The documentary adopts a suspenseful and well-placed narrative by revealing details bit by bit, keeping the audience hooked. It's bound to keep you on edge, and it contains just enough information to make you feel like you're a part of their journey as well. In my personal opinion, this is one of those bittersweet documentaries because even though you wish to know more about the case and the sick, twisted killer, the fact that that was his intention and what he wanted the most makes me not want to give in. The internet community consisted of regular people like you and me, and yet they did an incredible job of coming together against all odds and bringing this monster to justice. But did they, in some weird, twisted way, also encourage his actions? Definitely a must-watch. The Innocent Man, 2018. Based on John Grisham's nonfiction book, The Innocent Man, Murder and Injustice in a Small Town, this 6-episode series follows 2 murder cases that occurred in Oklahoma between 1982 and 1984. If you're interested in cases that raise important issues of police misconduct and false confessions, then this is definitely a must-watch. The story revolves around 2 cases. One, the brutal rape and murder of Debbie Carter, and the second one, the missing case of Denise Haraway. The unpredictable exploration of both cases is bound to take you on a roller coaster ride. Confusing timelines, melodramatic tones, corruption, and the cherry on top, we have a villain in the form of a district attorney. Set in the picturesque small town of Ada, where nothing significant ever happens, this puts everyone in the city on edge. 2 murders in the span of 2 years? The documentary focuses predominantly on the wrongful convictions of Williamson and Fritz for the Debbie Carter murder and Ward and Fontenot for the Denise Haraway murder. All 4 of the convicted were accused of the crimes without solid evidence, and there were aggressive police interrogations. Had it not been for the Innocence Project, they would still have been fighting for exoneration. With a rating of 7.0 out of 10, the show received mixed reviews. There is one thing that every viewer unanimously said, though, which was the importance of the story. The documentary is a slow burner to bring the convoluted and twisted truth to justice. The number of lives destroyed because of the incompetency of a single prosecution team was pretty sad. The family accounts of all the victims are guaranteed to make you shed a tear or two. The way all the little things come together to form the big picture, though, was highly satisfying.
This was the ultimate crime against women.
The Ripper, 2020. Set in the 1970s, serial killer Peter Sutcliffe, nicknamed Yorkshire Ripper, roamed the streets of England, bringing terror and fear to all. His victims were mainly sex workers whom he brutally murdered. His prey of choice? Women. In the span of 5 years, from 1975 to 1980, Sutcliffe murdered 13 women and attempted to murder 7 more. He had initially targeted prostitutes, which the media and police at the time ignored and dismissed. Over time, his confidence grew, and more women, including teenagers, were attacked, which wrapped the public in fear. The West Yorkshire police were under immense heat to catch the culprit. With countless victims and witnesses, they failed to connect patterns and overlooked vital evidence, which allowed Sutcliffe to continue his crimes for a long time. They were misled by a hoax killer who sent them tapes and letters pretending to be the killer. To make matters worse, and to our disappointment, the killer was right under their noses. Sutcliffe was interviewed multiple times, but each time he was let go due to their negligence, which only increased his confidence. Eventually, he was caught by the police, not for the mass killing spree, may I mention, but for having false license plates on his car. What makes this series an excellent binge-worthy watch is how they take a detailed approach to build suspense and give a thorough understanding of the case. The documentary gave dignity to the victims, despite their professions or lifestyles, and remembered them with respect. They also build on the historical context and take a feminist perspective, making it stand out. Do you know what makes for a good documentary? When your mind is so blown away by the atrocities you're seeing, and you feel like pulling out your own hair in despair. You know you're in for a good watch. This, I guarantee you, will give you exactly that. Killer Inside, Mind of Aaron Hernandez, 2020. The tragic downfall of Aaron Hernandez, an NFL football star, is a tale that must be told. From being the star of professional American football to being behind bars, the man has been through everything and worse. Killer Inside covers everything, from Hernandez's abusive father, his hidden homosexuality, being diagnosed with chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and taking his own life. Hernandez was another child brought into a cruel world, but his story took a turn for the better when he was selected as Connecticut's Football Player of the Year as a young 17-year-old. He had demonstrated behavioral problems and was not academically prepared, yet all his troubles would go away because of his status. Consequences were not of great concern for Hernandez till he went ahead and started committing more significant crimes. Everything started going sideways when Alexander Bradley was shot by Hernandez after an argument. This made Hernandez paranoid to an extent he couldn't cope with. The murder of Odin Lloyd, his friend and another football player, put Hernandez officially behind bars. Sadly enough, he was noted to be far happier behind bars than he was outside in the world. The series did a fantastic job of documenting the opinions of almost every important person in his life, leading to a mosaic narrative approach. A heart-wrenching and compelling tale that confuses you. I mean, 2 lives were destroyed, but who can you honestly side with? Instead of painting the man as a killer, contrary to its name, Killer Inside emphasized his sickness and humanized Aaron Hernandez. The documentary was one that yielded a whole lot of sympathy for him, especially when evidence of his CTE came into play. Viewers were moved by how much his illness seemed to have affected him, and they were outraged by the NFL and the league's mishandling of player safety and mental health. The documentary, in a nutshell, was well praised for its nuanced portrayal of Hernandez and how well it described the troubles he had. Conversations with a Killer, the Ted Bundy Tapes, 2019. Noted as one of history's most notorious serial killers, Ted Bundy is considered a cult favorite. With looks that could kill, And a mind that would actually kill, Bundy was a force to be reckoned with. With over 30 homicides committed between 1974 and 1978, Bundy had made quite a name for himself. With only 4 episodes, Joe Berlinger, creator and director of the documentary, has brilliantly brought together a nuanced presentation of Bundy's interviews and footage, as well as interviews with his friends, victims, and everyone involved with him and the case. The documentary consists of audio from over 100 hours of unheard interviews that were recorded while he was on death row, which was not made public. The documentary maintains a chronological narrative, focusing on his early life, eventual capture, and execution. They also offer insights into his psychology and manipulative tactics, while also shedding sufficient attention on the media circus that surrounded his trial. He was brilliant, and his charm had no bounds, helping him get out of any situation. With his cunning nature, he managed to evade the police for years, much to their frustration. In addition to this, his good looks made him a media sensation, wherein he acquired quite a large amount of female admirers. Yes, female fans. Based on what? Well, his murder and torture of women, of course. This man definitely got pretty privileged. Decades after his capture and execution, viewers were still fascinated with him. Hell, even I am. How can a man who appeared so ordinary and charming be a psychopath like that? How can he be so zen while taking the lives of that many women? One thing that stands out and makes this show interesting is how they depict Bundy and used his own words and speech to describe him. While some viewers feel like the show detailed too much about Bundy and his murders without giving enough attention to his victims, we do get a somewhat nuanced glimpse of the mind of such a notorious killer. The series was generally well received, and I would definitely consider this a must-watch for true crime fans.
They totally ignored the true story of this case.
The Sons of Sam, A Descent into Darkness, 2021. The Sons of Sam, A Descent into Darkness is a docu-series directed by Joshua Zeman that explores the case of the Son of Sam serial killings and the conspiracy theories that surround it. Son of Sam, previously also known as the .44 caliber killer, terrorized New York City between 1976 and 1977 by shooting and killing over 13 people. He was eventually arrested in 1977, confessed to the crimes, and claimed that he did it under Sam's, his neighbor's dog's, orders. This caught the interest of investigative journalist Maury Terry, who became obsessed with the case. Terry believed that Berkowitz was part of a satanic cult, later confirmed by Berkowitz, and that he did not act alone. In fact, he had multiple accomplices. He had formed a collective of evidence to support his theory, such as witness reports, which did not match Berkowitz. The Son of Sam documentary is an enthralling tale that follows the obsessions of Maury Terry, who spent the last decades trying to figure out what really happened behind the scenes in the murder. The documentary focuses on how much Terry was consumed by his cult and how he refused to give up on his claims despite being met with skepticism. The police themselves admit to the possibility of there being more than one criminal during these shootings, but all of that was ignored, and the tag went to Berkowitz as the lone gunman. The series portrays Terry as a tragic figure, as it questions whether there's really any truth behind Terry's theories. Zeman, the director of the documentary, labels Terry as the last victim of the murders. The series was rated 6.3 out of 10. With viewers considering it compelling and tense. What sets this docuseries apart from the others is how brilliantly they've gone in depth of not just the serial killer, but the cult it was allegedly a part of, and Terry, who basically gave up his life trying to find the truth in this complicated and twisted case. American Murder, The Family Next Door, 2020. Everything you see in the media is not necessarily true, and this is a case that proves that. The Watts were a happy family once, a sweet and devoted mother, Shannon, and husband, Chris, with their 2 beautiful children, Bella and Celesta, who were only 3 and 4 years old. One morning, they disappeared. Nobody seems to know where they went or what happened. You see Chris appearing on TV pleading for their safe return, and he works with law enforcement. Your heart goes out to the family. And then the truth comes out. The man you saw begging for their return with tears in his eyes was the very same man who orchestrated their disappearance. The documentary, directed by Jenny Popplewell, takes an unusual approach by telling the story only through news stories, police body cam recordings, social media posts, text messages, and archival footage. It depicts the disappearance and murder of Shannon, Bella, and Celesta in 2018. Many theories were explored during the making of the film, trying to explain the reasoning behind Chris's decision to wipe out his own family. including her alleged obsession with her phone or his own suggestion of Shannon being physically abusive, but neither turned out to be the case. The documentary also covers his affair with a co-worker, which turned out to be a significant motive for his crime. This man's chilling confession of how he strangled his wife and smothered his 2 daughters and the disposal of their bodies is sure to send a shiver down your back. With an approval rating of 86% on Rotten Tomatoes, the film has developed quite a large fan base, with viewers appreciating the documentary's usage of archival footage and messages to show the story, which blurred the lines between reality and storytelling. They found the film to give a raw, unfiltered perspective. This, in turn, made the murders feel all the more tragic. Tiger King: Murder, Mayhem, and Madness, 2020. This series is slightly different from the rest of our true crime documentaries. I won't disappoint you, so of course we have our murder plots, animal abuse, and personal vendettas. But unlike the rest of the aforementioned shows, this one is not as chilling and disturbing. Directed by Eric Goode and Rebecca Chaiklin, this series primarily focuses on the eccentric characters of Joe Exotic, a zoo owner, and Carol Baskin, an animal rights activist. Joe Exotic runs the infamous Wynwood Exotic Animal Park in Oklahoma, which exhibits tigers, lions, and many other exotic animals, which ticks off Baskin. Baskin now is a hardcore advocate who accuses Joe Exotic of exploiting and mistreating animals, and he reiterates by claiming she murdered her former husband, Don Lewis. Things take a turn for the worst when Joe's ever-growing obsession with taking Baskin down leads to hiring a hitman to have her killed. Joe Exotic, now a pop culture icon, was accepted for his flamboyant style and outlandish personality. Other characters include Doc Antle, another zoo owner who is accused of running a cult-like operation, and Jeff Lowe, a shady businessman that ultimately betrays Joe Exotic. The public's fascination with conspiracy theories was stoked by the series, particularly in relation to Don Lewis's disappearance. This brought on scrutiny towards Baskin, who was the good gal of the series. With an average rating of 7.88 out of 10, many viewers consider this to be a binge-worthy show with its constant twists and unpredictable story. The absurdity of the story is going to keep you hooked till the very end. Tiger King is considered to be one of Netflix's most watched shows, especially during the pandemic. The unique characters of this series alone make it a good watch, but when you add mystery and murder to it, rest assured that it's a great watch. Evil Genius: The True Story of America's Most Diabolical Bank Heist, 2018. Directed by Trey Borzilieri and Barbara Schroeder, this 4-part series delves into the case of Pizza Bomber Heist, a twisted and complicated bank heist that took place in the US in 2003 that left law enforcement on a wild goose chase for a while. The plan was so intricate and wonderfully orchestrated that it leaves you questioning who the brains behind the operation were. The plan was simple enough: kidnap a pizza delivery boy and threaten him to rob a bank. Of course, there was a bomb connected to his neck that was set to explode at any moment, and it was pretty challenging to understand who the mastermind of the heist was, considering the pizza boy was given a set of scavenger hunt-style instructions to delay the law enforcement before his tragic death. Marjorie Deal Armstrong, a highly intelligent woman with a history of violent behaviors and murders, was soon assumed to be the leader of the heist. The gang included Bill Rothstein, Kenneth Barnes, and Brian Wells. Rothstein died quickly after being questioned, and Wells was the pizza delivery boy who died during the heist bomb attack. The gripping and intricate details of the story, Marjorie's role as a diabolical genius, and the mystery surrounding the character of Wells make this a good watch. Viewers praised the documentary for its tight and focused method of storytelling, and for the shocking twists in each episode. The story also explores Marjorie's past troubles and her conspiracy, and most of all, the complex and diabolical evil genius that she is, which in itself is fascinating. Even though we have some answers about the crime, there are still tons of questions that will probably remain a mystery forever. A lot of the people who were involved have passed away, so we might never know the whole story. But honestly, the effort it took to dig up all this info is super impressive. The dedication to such an arduous investigation and actually finding some answers is something to really appreciate. This would have made a sensational Hollywood thriller, but the fact that it happened in real life, yikes. The Staircase, 2022. Last but not least, we have The Staircase, a biographical crime drama television series created by Antonio Campos, based on the murder of Kathleen Peterson. The story of Michael Peterson, a crime novelist, is a rather riveting and gripping one. Allegedly, Michael got home one day only to find his beloved wife at the bottom of the staircase, breathing her last breath. With tearful eyes and a broken heart, he immediately calls for help while cradling his dying wife in his arms. Even when he was being charged with her murder, he hired a defense attorney to represent him. He also calls in for a family meeting, and mind you, his family is not small. It consists of his brothers, sons from previous marriages, Kathleen's daughter, his adopted daughters, Kathleen's sisters, and a whole lot of other people. The unity of the family, and then the eventual fracture of the very family, is quite a dilemma. The documentary, originally directed by Jean-Xavier de Lestrade, offers a close-up and detailed look at the court case, the prosecution's and defense's tactics, and the toll the case takes on Peterson and his family. It examines a number of ideas regarding Kathleen's death, ranging from homicide to simply falling down the stairs, posing queries regarding justice, forensic evidence, and the legitimacy of the legal system. The series delves into betrayal, trust, and the evolving family dynamics, which will make you question everything. Whether you believe Michael is innocent or guilty, The Staircase is a compelling examination of a high-profile criminal trial that never fails to enthrall and fascinate viewers worldwide. Oh, and did I mention that Colin Firth and Toni Collette acted as Michael and Kathleen Peterson? Marvelous verdict. As we explore these gripping true crime shows on Netflix, it's clear that our fascination with the darker side of humanity taps into something profound within us. These stories not only thrill and chill, but also provoke reflection on justice, morality, and the human psyche. Whether you're drawn in by the intricate narratives, the complex characters, or the shocking revelations, each documentary offers a unique window into a world that, while unsettling, is undeniably captivating. So, as you settle into your next binge session, remember that you're not just an observer. You are a part of a larger conversation about crime, consequence, and the relentless pursuit of truth. Let us know down below which of these were your favorites and why. Happy watching, and if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.